This is the Ross Grimsley Show. The Ross Grimsley Show is presented by Mobil 1. Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil helps extend engine life. Visit your local Jiffy Lube service center and ask for Mobil 1. Now, here's the old left-hander, Ross Grimsley.
Welcome, everybody. We're coming to you from the live Casino Hotel studio. I'm with Kyle Ottenheimer. Kyle, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, sir. How about yourself?
Wonderful, wonderful. Great week. Good weekend for you?
You know, it was. Although I could lobby one complaint.
Okay.
And that's the Orioles keep winning. And no, look, I want to make this very clear. I am an Orioles fan.
Absolutely.
I am absolutely 100% an Orioles fan. I just happen to understand that the Orioles are trying to gather assets. And they are currently losing ground in the race for number one overall. But I digress. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I'm great. Good week. Busy, but
yeah.
What the O's? I mean, what about the trade deadline? You know, that came and went August the 1st. Were you surprised? Were you not surprised? What?
I mean, surprised is if you were expecting the Orioles to just sell for the sake of selling, then you could be surprised and upset that they didn't make more moves. But I think if there's one thing we've learned about Mike Elias and company is that they're going to do their due diligence and figure out exactly what their best course of action is. I have to believe and trust that they didn't have the offers for Mancini that would have made it worth it. And Givens didn't perform well enough leading into the deadline for teams to have him high up on their list of arms that they were wanting to get. And so the deadline was kind of slow, and then 3 o'clock rolled around, and some of the really good relievers were still available.
Well, and then the big trade that Houston made.
Yeah,
I mean, they have 3 of the top 6 pitchers with the best whip.
Oh, no, and their ERAs.
So they're a three-headed
ERA
monster,
is like sub-3.
Exactly. You're going to get to see these guys, probably some of them, this weekend.
How do you explain that their fourth best, let me rephrase that, the fourth best starter on one of the best pitching staffs of all time is former Oriole Wade Miley?
Right, who's done a really good job. But, yeah, they're on track to win 100 games for the 3rd straight year. So, I mean, they've got, hopefully they can bring this kind of formula here to Baltimore. Again, I told you earlier, what I'm really concerned about is the pitching, and I don't know if, you bring guys here. Do people want to come here and pitch free agents? Because Houston, they got, Verlander, Cole, Miley. They got some free agents, and they got some.
Why wouldn't you want to go pitch for Houston, right?
They've
really demonstrated that they can not only have guys already who are good come in and succeed, but do better than they did before. They raised the level of their starters' performance.
Exactly. I mean, you got their big thing was, they got Altuve, they got Springer, Correa, who's been hurt, Bergman at 3rd. They got the makings, obviously, of they did the right things to do that. My question is, being here in Baltimore, playing in Camden Yards where the ball flies out of here like a rocket. I mean, they've given up.
This ball especially, right?
Yeah, there's Orioles 223 home runs, 130 of them here in Camden Yards. They're on track to beat the Reds of 2016, which gave up 258 home runs.
And although that is true, right, the Orioles are allowing the most home runs in baseball. I believe there are 4 teams this season that are on track to break that record.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just baseball, right?
You look behind, in the stadiums. This is one thing that is really – more home runs are hit in Camden Yards than anywhere in baseball. 207 home runs.
More than Coors Field.
More than Coors Field. Philadelphia is 2nd. Houston and Seattle are 3rd. The Yankees are 4th.
Well, they got that jet stream.
Colorado and Toronto are 5th, tied for 5th. Colorado there's 5-6 other teams that have more home runs in their park. But that's my point is you want to get some quality pitchers to come here. You're going to have to really draft. You're going to have to trade. You're going to have to get guys.
I think that's kind of exactly my point, is that, like, when I say I want the Orioles to lose, in a vacuum, of course I don't want the Orioles to lose, but I happen to know a little bit about the 2020 draft class.
Right.
And I know that the top prospect right now is a pitcher that has been said to be, this is Emerson Hancock out of Georgia, said to be on par with Casey Mize, the current number 2 prospect in all of baseball, as the de facto one of the best college arms we've seen in the past 5 to 6 years.
Right.
The second prospect available is a college first baseman.
Which they don't need here.
And so there's a real difference there in value for an organization trying to rebuild and gather assets when you're talking about adding somebody who, if they hit, which, when you're drafted first overall, the expectation more than any pick in the draft is to succeed.
Sure.
They're worth 4 to 5 times more than a first baseman, no matter how good that first baseman is.
I think here with the Orioles, you got to look defense and you got to look pitching. That should be the 2 priorities right there, because I think the way the ball flies out of here, you can get some hitters. But I mean, and obviously they got some guys that they drafted. They're going to end up probably down toward the bottom for the next few years and get some better players.
But that's why it's kind of amazing that they've been winning. They're 17-5 in their last 32 games, and they just beat the Yankees. Right? Jonathan VR hits for the cycle. Is this? Do we credit? Is it Brandon Hyde that deserves the bulk of the credit here?
No, I mean, obviously keeping the guys and pumping them up and saying the right things. But the players are the guys that and the work that they've done, they're getting a chance to perform. And a lot of them are living. VR hit for the cycle last night. Mancini's having a good year. Nunez has hit 25 home runs. You never saw that. Santander has been a guy that
he's been the most pleasant surprise.
He's been a great surprise. But you know what? He's a young guy that you kind of saw he had some ability, and now he's healthy. He can play, several outfield positions.
One of the few guys on this roster that you can comfortably say will, be starting an everyday player next year, right?
He is a guy that probably you got Mancini, who does his thing. Is he a great defensive player? No.
But let's be fair, right? We just talked about the first base prospect out of college.
Right.
Most first base prospects are not capable of going and playing an adequate corner outfield position the way that Mancini has done. So that's a credit to him.
Oh, it's great. He has got more out of him learning how to play left field last year, learning how to play right field this year.
He's proven to be far more versatile than people ever thought he would be.
First of all, is he great at that? No, but can he do a credible job? And he gives you everything he's got.
Right. You'd much rather Mancini than Trumbo in right field.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But let's get back to this. I got something. I'm hungry. I want to talk about something.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I like crabs. You know that.
Who doesn't?
No, I know everybody does. But there's a place, 4100 North Point Boulevard, Costa's Inn. They're known far and wide for their great steamed crabs and crab cakes. They have nightly specials: crab cake night on Mondays, rib night on Tuesdays, steak night on Wednesdays, and on steak night you get a bottle of wine for half price. So you're getting your meat and your liquor. So good, go get them. Lobster night on Thursdays. And you can check out costasinn.com to find out more information. They also will ship your crab cakes anywhere from the inn. So Costa's Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Got to go there. Great spot. Love it. I went there last week, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Crabs. We had to jump all over. Pete and Nick, great. The whole staff down there.
Can never go enough.
They'll make you feel like family. They treat you great. Then you can slide over to the bar and get some live music occasionally, too. So,
which is always fun. Yeah. I know later on this show we got Richie Bancells joining us.
Yes, sir. And that will be quite interesting. I'm sure he's the longest tenured Oriole up until 2017 when he retired. So I'm sure I got some questions for him. I know he is a landmark with the Oriole Hall of Fame.
No doubt.
He's a great guy. He's rubbed some knots out of my arms a few times. So anyway, that's great. But getting back to the O's, last night they lose 9-6, 20,000 people. Most of them, it sounded like were Yankee fans. Every time there's a base hit or something, it sounded like the Yankees were doing something else. But
that's the kind of the way it goes when the Orioles aren't winning.
The O's 38-74, 17-39 at home. They got their 38th win last year on August the 27th.
So they're
ahead of pace. I mean, I know Bob Haney at 105.7 The Fan, he said had a bet with somebody about 40 wins. When they'll get it.
Right.
He's pretty much going to win that bet.
Look, it's crazy. If you had said this a month ago, if you had asked the question before they went on this stretch, they probably would have been on pace, if not behind pace.
Oh.
They are playing decent baseball right now, right? Like they're hitting well, they're pitching well enough. Wojo has injected a little bit of life outside of that one outing against Toronto.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say is, while they've had kind of a rocky road of it, is the arms that they're bringing up and putting in the bullpen are guys who were once, they're prospects who were thought of. Brandon Klein was the second-round pick. Dylan Tate was a guy that they traded and got in return for Zach Britton. So it's not as if these are just nobodies that are being slotted into this role.
They're guys, and you watch them pitch, they got good stuff. They have good breaking pitches. They're just inconsistent. Yeah. And I think some of that comes from if you let that stadium affect the way you pitch, which it can happen. Wrigley Field, Fenway, you can do different things. You get away from what you do best, and that's what happens. And then you've seen some of the guys. Hellickson came here. Yeah. Wade Miley was here. A lot of guys that leave here and they do better. They do better because they're in another park that's not as...
How much of it... You hear a lot of pitchers say it's about trusting your stuff.
Sure.
Is Camden Yards just like really... It really negates that trust factor?
When you make a good pitch and they hit it off the end of the bat or hit it off the handle and it goes out, now you go, what am I doing? What do I do now? But you got to expect... That's going to happen in that park. It happens, like I said, in Fenway. It happens in Wrigley Field, Colorado. The ball's going to fly out. The thing is, the Orioles have to use fewer pitches. They have to not walk people. There's time to walk guys, and that's another thing that they don't do in baseball now is intentionally walk. I mean, if I can't get this guy out, I ain't pitching to him in a scoring position. Sure. I'll pitch to the next guy.
I mean, there's only off the top of my head, there's 3 or 4 guys right now that I would be like, I can't pitch to them, like Bellinger, Trout, Yelich, and the one that I'm forgetting off, and Betts, I guess.
Yeah, but what if you're able to get those guys out? And everybody is different. I might be able to get the good guy out, but I can't get the poorer hitter out.
And I think you'd hope that's where analytics and the statistics backs up behind it would come into play.
That's one of the problems. You rely on what these numbers are telling you instead of what you do. You have to watch the game. And that's one of the things, and you talk to a lot of people, and I've talked to several people, the guys don't watch the game. They don't get a feel for what they can do and what they can't do. So that they depend on the numbers telling them. And a lot of times that's not the whole story. And what ends up happening, you look at, I'm telling you, Gausman and Brad Brock.
Who was just released, by the way, when Gausman was just claimed by the Reds.
Yes. These two guys have really good stuff. There's no reason why they should be getting knocked around like that as often as they are. Gausman's a two-pitch guy. He'll throw it 93, 94.
Well, he's a 3-pitch guy if you count his 2 changeups.
What? Yeah, really. But basically a 2-pitch guy. And what he does, he throws his fastball 93, 94, and then when he gets 2 strikes, he'll jack it up to 97, 98.
And he's got that
split.
Right?
He's got that split, which I think he's a better back end of the bullpen type guy.
I mean, he was always – the slider never came along for him.
No, it was a pitch that he had a breaking ball. You just use it in situations where you're not going to get hurt with it or try not to get hurt with it. You
saw when he was locating his fastball on both sides of the plate, he could still succeed.
And that's the problem.
Right.
He's only able to do it to one side of the plate, and that really caused a problem. Then he couldn't get ahead. He couldn't go to his split when he got ahead. He didn't get ahead enough. Brad Brock is a guy that can go out. He throws 95, 96, good arm, and people are really interested in this guy. But he implodes. He implodes. So it just you go, and when they left, they made comments about how much more analytics were involved. And I think Gausman said one of the things, he goes, well, they told me I need to get ahead first pitch. Yeah. I mean, you should know that. That's not something that analytics, I mean, that's just something that's been going on for 100 years. You know that.
Right.
But he didn't, obviously. And some of the things, I don't know if they weren't told, but here's this information that you have, and use it. But don't get – what happens sometimes is they just overload guys. That very well could have happened with both those guys. Too much information, paralysis from analysis. Take the stuff that you can use, but – you got to see it yourself. You got to watch. You watch. I learned more from watching Palmer, McNally, Cuellar, Catfish Hunter, Fergie Jenkins. Just watch these guys, what they do, and occasionally ask a question.
Right.
No one does that.
Right.
I asked Bumgarner when he was here, I go, do any of these young pitchers come up? And he goes, no. Really? They don't ask you any? No.
Were you surprised to not see Bumgarner moved?
No. They moved moved. One of the guys they moved got
The
hurt
bullpen guy,
to
Will
Minnesota.
Smith, right, as well.
Is there? He's there. Dyson, who was with them, he went to Minnesota with. Also, Romo went there. They stored up their bullpen. Dyson got hurt.
Yeah.
So I forget what it was, but but no, there's 8 teams separated by 5 games heading into last night in the National League. The Giants were one of them. Yeah. So they're keeping. They get Longoria back. He's hurt. They got Scooter Gennett. They got him. So here's a guy that Joe Panic was over there. He's struggling, I guess, a little bit. But I mean, they got several teams that are in the Mets. What about the Mets? I mean, the Mets are on fire.
People questioned the Stroman move. They did trade Vargas.
Yep.
So it's not as if they did nothing.
Right.
But no, they're always interesting for the wrong reasons more often than not. But at least you think that at least they seem to have a plan for next year, whether you think it's the right one or you agree with how they went about it. They kept Syndergaard. They got Stroman. They had
keep
DeGrom.
Playing like they're playing. I mean, I think they've won 10 of 11 games.
They kept Wheeler too, right?
They got their whole 5 staff with Stroman. So they got the staff. They lost Cano.
Their bullpen's still a disaster.
Well, pick a team that doesn't have geez.
Who were you most? And speaking of that exact thing, how surprised were you to see the Dodgers not add a bullpen arm, to see the Yankees not add a starter, to see the Red Sox not add a starter?
Well, what Red Sox didn't get, they've blown 18 saves. They moved Eovaldi to the bullpen. Sale is struggling. Price is struggling. Their pitching has been, and it all goes back to not using them in spring training and getting them ready.
Yeah.
For me, that's what. But not getting the Yankees. I mean, they got so many guys. They've had 26 guys on the DL this year. They had several more that are waiting to come off. Severino, Betances. They just lost Encarnacion to a fractured hand. Voit is down. Sanchez, I think, is down. They got a ton of guys. If they get these guys back,
they got hurt too, right?
They got an 8-game lead.
Yeah,
I mean they just destroyed Boston. 4-game series. Tampa Bay got the bat Aguilar. They got a right-handed bat they needed. But overall, and Toronto sent several guys away. And the Orioles actually. They have a tough stretch now of teams that are playing. The Yankees, Houston, Boston, but
if they somehow emerge from this 3-series stretch with a winning record, I will lose my.
Well, no, but I mean, chances are they won't. But next month, there's a chance they could be 500 or better next month, which would really be something because they can play. They're scoring runs. They're scoring a lot of runs. They just got to find a way to stop the other teams, which has been really a problem. But and with their bullpen, but they sent Yacobonis down. They recalled whoever, I forget. Yeah. But
we're still waiting.
Scott, yeah,
we're still waiting for some of the guys. They haven't yet began to call up any of the quote unquote prospects for these roles yet. So it'll be interesting to see when they start those clocks.
Sure.
When Keegan Aiken does make that trip up, when Austin Hayes, Mountcastle, and the like start to be called upon. But
might see him in September. It'd be a good chance if they want.
And for now, they're not needed, right? The team's winning without them. So
really, and just let them keep getting their time in down there and learning.
All right, well, we're going to take our break. On the other side, we're going to chat with former Orioles trainer Richie Bancells. It's the Ross Grimsley Show.
This is the Ross. Baltimore's favorite bar is just 771 feet from home plate at Camden Yards. Sliders Bar and Grill is at 504 Washington Boulevard, just steps away from Camden Yards. It's the perfect sports bar for every season. This is the perfect time to book your private party or take the office to lunch. Feeding clients, take them to Baltimore's neighborhood sports bar, Sliders, for great food and drinks with some local atmosphere. You can book your private event on the second floor or on the outside patio, both overlooking the best stadium in baseball. See all of Sliders' daily specials or book your party at slidersbaltimore.com. Sliders, Baltimore's neighborhood sports bar. Visit them today.
Check out Costa's Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. They're known far and wide for their great steamed crabs and crab cakes. And their nightly specials also include crab cake night on Monday, rib night on Tuesday, steak night on Wednesdays with a half-price bottle of wine, and lobster night on Thursdays. Check out costasinn.com to find out more. And the delicious crab cakes are shipped anywhere.
The Ross Grimsley Show is sponsored by Jerry's Tire, located in Baltimore City, just steps away from Little Italy and historic Jonestown. Jerry's not only sells all the major brand tires like Bridgestone, Michelin, and Continental, but is your go-to shop for everything from oil changes to factory scheduled maintenance. All repairs are backed by a nationwide warranty. The team over at Jerry's has been serving the Baltimore area for over 62 years and are eager to earn your business. Give them a call at 410-685-4330 or visit them online at jerrystires.com to shop for tires and schedule an appointment. That's Jerry's, GERRYS, tires.com.
All right, let me tell you a little bit about ExxonMobil. Mobil One's full synthetic motor oil helps extend engine life. Visit your local Jiffy Lube service center and ask for Mobil One. All right, our next guest, and he was a trainer for 41 years with the Orioles.
Is that a lot?
It's even long. From 77 to 2017, he was in the Orioles organization. And now, I'll get into this with him about what these guys do. They're not given enough credit. But anyway, Richie Bancells, like I said, inducted into the Oriole Hall of Fame 2011. He's done so many things. He's been 1995, his training staff was the training staff of the year, again in 2011. Richie was Orioles Advocates Hubert E. Armstrong Award winner in 2011. NATA Most Distinguished Athletic Trainer. He's just done so much. He served 3 terms as president of the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainers Society. He also currently serves as executive committee on that. Richie was a high school pitcher before he went into training. He didn't, which I didn't know, and he didn't. Richie, thanks for being with us, buddy.
Thank you, Ross. Thanks for saying all those nice things about me.
You deserve every bit of it, man. Hey, I don't think people realize. I know, spending my 47 years in baseball and seeing what you guys do and how much you put it. People just don't realize that you don't go to the ballpark at 6 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. You might get there at noon or before. I've seen that, but it's a 24/7 year-round job. Going to the park, setting up, early treatment for the guys, pitchers, extra players, the lineup guys, ice bags, whirlpools, doctor's appointments. You name it, you guys have done it. But like I said, and even during the winter. Your time is just it's unbelievable with people like me calling, where can I go to get a doctor's appointment or whatever. But you guys have done so much. I don't think people realize that.
Well, thanks, Ross. But, I never think of it in terms, or never did think of it in terms of how much it was or how time-consuming it was. When you're doing something you really love doing, which I did, it just, there's no real clock to it. I mean, you just love doing it. You just show up every day and you do it to help people and help them get back on the field.
I tell you, it has to be really special to have Junior talk about you doing what you did to help him through those consecutive games played. I know he mentioned you at his induction in Cooperstown, so that had to be really special to hear that from him.
Really caught me off guard, and the thing about that was because I was in season, obviously, and working. I really had no intention of going, and a lot of people had to talk me into to going after he invited my family and me there, and it really didn't hit me until he mentioned it at the time. But it was quite a highlight in my career. It was a very emotional and unexpected thing for me at the time. And I kind of received it for all athletic trainers and all the stuff that they do for players, but certainly well appreciated when he mentioned that.
I tell you what, I know you guys, your first year, I think, was 77, 78, if I'm not mistaken, and that was Cal's first year as well. During all those consecutive games, how many injuries did he have that you were concerned about him going out and playing, or was there any?
Yeah, I mean, one was in '84, but the streak wasn't an issue then. It wasn't. It was just being born, I guess you would say, and that was on a pickoff play when he was covering at second base, and he sprained an ankle. And long story short, we had a fortunate off day the next day that helped because we would play an exhibition game against the Naval Academy at that time. But even after that, it looked like he wasn't going to be able to do it. It was just, swollen and achy and all that. But Cal being Cal, he just sort of said, tape it up and let's go. And we got through it. Probably the other biggest event was later on we had a fight with the Seattle Mariners at home, which was a pretty nasty fight. And obviously he was in the pile and his knee got landed on and he sprained a ligament in his knee. And at that time, he was still playing short, so he had to move from side to side, obviously playing short. So that was very compromising with the ligament he sprained. But again, him being him, and this was later on when the strike was an issue, but he wasn't trying to go out there. Wasn't going out there because of the strike. He was going out there because he thought he was needed and he felt he should play.
Was there a specific time when you remember Cal being, maybe banged up a little, and then maybe another player would have taken the day off, but both you and he knew that, this streak was a real thing? When did that kind of start, if ever?
I can, it was always in the back of your mind. You can't deny that, but he really never played for the streak. I know people can't understand that, and it's hard to understand, but you have to know Cal, you have to know his dad and his family's work ethic to appreciate and understand it. And it kind of rang, when the streak was becoming an issue for the media more than anyone else in the public, it kind of rang to me one time because, he jumped up on the taping table like he did every day 15 minutes before batting practice started, and he said to me, he says, "I don't understand what the big deal is." He says, "You come to work every day, don't you?" And that was just his attitude. He felt like he was a ball player, and if he was coming to the ballpark, and as he said, if they kept putting his name in a lineup, he was there to play.
I tell you, he's a big kid. We played basketball out at the house, and we played over at Brett Mar before he built the gym out there. But he was a big kid. We played basketball. We played floor hockey on Tuesdays and Thursdays, basketball Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Until it was just there were too many good players out there, and then I couldn't do that anymore. But he was always, he had a jammed finger, he twisted his ankle or something, and he just loved the competition and the play, and that was really that's why I go. That's not a big surprise to me that he played that that many games in a row. It was just fun for him. He loved it. So that was really good. Richie, you played under 13 managers, I believe, in your time with the Orioles. Now, I know, I believe, you were with Earl for a few years, your favorite, Frank Robinson. Now, I'll get in that in a minute, but Aldebelli, Frank, Johnny Oates, Reagan, Davey Johnson, Ray Miller, Hargrove, Mazzilli, Palazzo. Which of those guys was the easiest for you to work with? Wow.
That's a loaded question. They're all different in their ways. But you have to adjust to each one in their ways and see how they like to treat things and how they like things done. But I've said this, 1980 was my first Major League camp in Miami, Florida, and Earl was the manager. And I'll admit I was scared to death of the man because I'd heard all about him, and I didn't want to say a word to him, and I didn't want him to say a word to me. And that lasted about 3 weeks, but I've always told people, and I've actually told managers when they came on, I said, listen, I started under Earl Weaver, so there's going to be very little that you can do or say to me that's going to affect me after having gone through that.
Right. Well, you did a little bit of everything for Earl, didn't you? You were his driver. I do remember that. That had to be quite a time.
Yeah, there were two sides to that coin. Earl had an unfortunate traffic incident at one point that he couldn't drive in spring training, so being the assistant at the time, I got appointed to do that. There was two sides of that. Earl had his definite rules and ways that we were going to do things when we drove to and from the ballpark every day. But the other side is that I actually got to know him, and we got to know each other pretty well, and have some conversations to and from ballparks about about the game. I learned a lot about the game in that car, believe it or not.
Did you take up smoking after that?
No, it certainly convinced me not to ever do it.
Right. Oh, well, hey, out of all those guys, and I know you were with Buck for 7 years, and I know you were always on the rail next to Buck. What did you guys talk about? You know what? People ask me that, and they would be shocked
if they heard what we talked about, because I think for Buck, a lot of times I come out in the first and second inning, and for an athletic trainer, the game is actually, unless an injury happens, is a chance to calm down and relax. The work is all done before.
Right.
So I'd go out in the first and second inning and sit in the bench and watching the game, and then Buck would look back at me and pull his hand up, pointing, and you want me to come up by the rail, so I would. And I think a lot of it was just a stress relief thing for him, or a venting kind of thing for him. He used me to do that, and I was happy to help him.
Yeah.
In any way. Once in a while he would look over to me and he'd say something. Would you steal right here? Would you steal right here? And
sure.
We'd give him an opinion, but then other times he would say to me things like, because he knew I was a lawn freak. I like keeping my lawn in my house.
Right.
So he would say, so when's the next time you're going to fertilize the lawn or something? Or what are you doing tomorrow on the off day? Are you fishing tomorrow? And so there were non-baseball related questions, so that made me think maybe it's just a way for him to have a release.
Sure. I bet this. Now, comparing the players now to back when you first started, can you do that? How is the analytics? I know they were slowly starting to get in to ball, of several years ago. But how is the players from back in the 70s changed to now for you? What have you seen?
Well, there's a lot, and first of all, on the analytics side, it's interesting. I still go down and help in spring training.
Right.
They're gracious enough to have me down there, and I sit and listen to this, and I hearken back to the days of Earl Weaver and actually Cal Ripken Sr. They carried around this little tin box that had 3x5 index cards in it, and it had all the tendencies of all the hitters and pitchers on other teams. And so you could say that was a form of analytics. It just wasn't done on a fancy computer. But it seemed to me like we were doing things like that way back when. It's just more sophisticated these days, I guess.
It's an overload for some things, I do believe. But that's where I learned, coaching for 31 years. And somebody says, what about I go, we kind of did that.
Yeah.
I learned it from Earl, seeing how he did it. And obviously you tried to add a little bit more that you can use, that the players can use. I mean, now I think one of the problems now, you got really guys that are just really hammered with a lot of stuff, and it just really is confusing for some people. But yeah, I just kind of wonder. Also, it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, and we've talked a little bit about this in the past, the injury situation now. I see more injuries now, especially leg injuries for pitchers. And somebody hits a ground ball when they have to hit, or they run the bases, and you guys got quads or hamstrings or whatever. Do you see more injuries now? Or
you know what, Ross? I've seen late in my latter third of my career, I would say I saw more and more of a different kinds of injuries.
Right.
Especially when it comes to pitching, and got to be careful here because I can tend to get on a soapbox, so knock me off of it anytime.
No.
I'm sensitive to this, especially with pitching, and I think people have to understand, guys get injured when we get them here, and I say we, professional baseball, but I think it's because we're the end of the assembly line, so to speak. We kind of get what happens to these kids earlier in their age.
Correct.
And I think that's what happens. We end up being the end result. And I can tell you that because in many years looking at the draft medicals, I saw more and more kids that already at a young age had a Tommy John surgery on their elbow.
Right.
Or had things that indicated they were on the way to injuries. And I think all of this is a result of what's happening with these young kids with specialization in baseball too early, and too much, too frequent in terms of throwing the ball hard all the time.
Right.
I think this is just a snowball effect that's and again, I just went to Cooperstown, fortunately, and to see Mike Messina inducted into the Hall of Fame. Mike Messina, I'm not great with numbers, but I believe pitched 18 years in the major leagues.
Right.
And never had a shoulder or elbow surgery. And I remember having a conversation with Mike way back when he was with us. And he was always very diligent about his prevention program that we put him on and very religious about doing it. But, Mike grew up in a small town in Montoursville, Pennsylvania. And he told me that there was no such thing as travel ball then. There was no such thing as showcases then. That he only played baseball during baseball season.
Right.
And Mike was a hell of an athlete. So he played basketball during basketball and football during football and baseball only during baseball. I think there's a message there. And unfortunately,
really.
I don't think that message is being followed.
Yeah.
No. Well, you look back when in the 70s, my first year here at Baltimore, 74. In my, I played up till 77 and 82 came back. But we played racquetball, we played basketball, we traveled with a basketball team, with the Orioles team, and we always were running. And that's one of the things. I go out to the ballpark now, and I would go out at 1 o'clock, noon or 1 o'clock, and I would stay and watch to see if anybody was running on the field, pitching-wise. And you might see 3 or 4 guys, and that's it.
Yeah, it's different. There's no doubt. And I'm not going to lie, and sometimes the old traditionalist in me comes out, and I sit there and scratch my head because, I wonder, are we doing the right things? Have we crossed the line in some ways? A few years ago, Russ, you'll appreciate this. A few years ago, I had a guy with a lower back injury in spring training, actually an infielder, and I was rehabbing him. And as we got toward the end of his rehab, we're doing more functional things. I took him outside, and I did this drill with him so that because he was an infield, so he could move side to side and bend down, pick the ball up, and throw it back to me. And it was called pickups.
Right.
And I'm sure you remember pickups.
Oh, God, don't I?
Well, a couple things happened. One, he got gassed. And this is a guy who kept himself in pretty good quote-unquote shape.
Right.
He got gassed so quick doing those, he couldn't believe it. But at the same time, he said it was a really good drill, he felt, for him. And other people were looking at us like we were nuts. And then Buck Showalter walked by, and Buck said, "Holy, I have not seen that in like 20 years."
Right.
But it worked. It served our purpose well.
Sure.
And
That was crazy. I mean, running, I think I was one of the last pitching coaches that ran the pitchers with baseballs. Which I said you can get so much out of that. You can get your sprints, you can get your distance, you can get them to jog, you can get them to go quick, you can get them to cut and do what have you. But they'll run forever if you make it fun, and you just don't see that. And they would run forever if they're having a good time doing it. But the thing was, the guys that didn't, when they didn't do that, and then you presented it to them, like you said, they were gassed. They couldn't do it. And it was, it's just been it's something that it was really, it worked great, and like you said, it's the old school thing, but it was working. You got so much benefits out of it, but that's something you don't see.
I agree, but then the question has to become: do you even? Playing devil's advocate, do you even need it now? Do you even need to do it? Because guys only go a few innings. I don't know when it became the norm for a guy to pitch 110 pitches in 5 innings.
And whoever came up with that
I know.
number.
I watch the game, and it's so different now. No one is going deep into the games, and it's, you know, walking around Cooperstown in the museum in there and looking at pitcher stats and that. I wondered, will we ever hear the phrase "complete game shutout" again?
Oh, yeah, really? It's you just kind of scratch your head. But you know, getting back to the injuries, like you mentioned, I agree 100% what you were saying with all the specialty things they have and playing year round and not playing other sports and stuff. I talked to several people, and the last year I played 82, I strained my elbow in spring training in 1982. And we played against the University of Miami, who kicked my ass in 1975 after I'd won 18 games and pitched almost 300 innings. And I said, if I ever pitch against these guys again, I'm going to stick it up their butts. So I went out and I humped up. I was throwing 85, 86. The next day, I couldn't straighten my elbow out because I tried to do more than I was capable of doing.
Yeah.
And Flanny had went to a doctor that got him a shot in his hip, and I said, where's that guy? I need a shot in my elbow. So I went and did that, all because I tried to throw the ball harder than I was capable of throwing it.
Yeah.
And you see more guys now, in this day and age, it's a power game, power arm. I got to throw 110 or whatever, but you're throwing harder than you have to throw. Especially with relievers more often, and you're seeing the relievers break down a little bit more now, more and more, because it's power, and you're just trying to throw as hard as you can. So that says something, and you would think somebody would say something. Do the young trainers, do they listen to you, what you have to offer?
I think so.
Yeah, you hope.
I hope.
Are they just courteous and you know?
Yeah, I mean, one of the joys I have now when I go to spring training is I spend about a week or 10 days down at the minor league camp, and there must be a little bit of teacher hidden in me because I love that time with the young athletic trainers down there, and we talk about things, and you know, I hope they learn. I hope they take some of it, and I think part of it is not so much all the book knowledge and stuff that they already have. I mean, these guys are way smarter than I ever was. But it's. I try to teach them how to a perception of people, how to understand people and understand athletes, understand, you know, when they're tired, when they need recovery, when they're exhausted. You know, how much is too much. And that's a hard thing in this game today.
Sure. To
try and talk people into resting, and you know, that because it's go, and just like with the pitchers, too much, too hard, too often.
Right. We're talking to Richie Bancells.
Richie, before one of my favorite all-time Orioles. I'm a little younger. I mean, Adam Jones. What were your experiences with him like through the years?
Adam?
Yeah.
Great guy, great leader. You know, one of those, we had so many in the clubhouse during the years, one of those quiet leaders that knew how to either, you know, bring young guys around by either pulling them aside and talking to them quietly, and leading by example on the field, and a guy who would go out there every day. You know, he was just a ball player, Ross, and I don't know if people often understand what I mean when I say that. You know, he's, you know, just a ball player. He goes out there for you every day, and though it may not show up in the newspaper the next day, he's going to do something for you that's going to help you win the game.
Right.
And I really admire those kind of guys. They make my job in life a lot easier.
Absolutely.
You know, don't complain. Just go out there and do it and play. And the thing about it is, if they do step into your training room and with a problem, you know it's for real.
Right. Before I let you go, Rich, one thing. Advice you'd give to somebody wanting to be a professional trainer, what would that be?
Don't do it.
Not unless you don't want to. One of the questions, I mean, you cannot go out and have a drink at night because you're bright and early in the morning. I just, seeing it firsthand and, you know, seeing what you guys do. Like I said before, you know, I'm surprised you were able to do it 41 years. I know you wanted to be with your family and your grandkids, and you wanted to fish a little bit more. But thanks a lot for being with us today, buddy. Hopefully we'll get together here soon and have some crabs or eat some ribs.
It's always fun, Ross.
All
always
right.
fun to get together with you and talk with you, man. Take care.
Say hi to the family.
Will do. You
All right,
too.
buddy. Great. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Sliders. Favorite bar at 771 feet from home plate. Sliders Bar and Grill, just steps from Camden Yards. Perfect sports bar for baseball season and all other sports. Big events on dozens of TVs. Daily specials include Mexican Monday, Wing Ding Wednesday, Bloody Brunch Sunday, and more, with different drink specials every day of the week. You can also book your private parties at Sliders with great spaces upstairs and an outdoor patio overlooking Camden Yards. Sliders, Baltimore's neighborhood sports bar. See at sliders.com, and be sure to visit Sliders today. 771 feet from home plate.
One of the best places you can find.
Had a great time. We did guest bartending down there and had a great time. And I even had the tacos.
I mean, look, the food's fantastic. I've had the wings. They are, to die for.
To die for. And
Honey Old Bay. I mean, look, I'm a Buffalo wing
Bay,
guy, but Honey Old Bay is the second best flavor of wings, in my opinion. So
Honey Old Bay.
Honey Old Bay. If you ever get the chance.
I've had Old Bay, but not.
You got to combine sweet and savory sometime, Ross.
Try it. All right, buddy. I think we about a wrap.
Sounds good to me.
All right, man. Cool.
And we have been broadcasting, of course, from the live casino hotel studio.
Yes, we have. That's
at
absolutely
Press
right.
Box. Everybody have a good one.
All right.